Hello, my name is Natalie and welcome to my channel Knitting-a-GoGo, and today I want to talk about this pattern that I plan on making, which is another Mary Quant pattern from my collection, and it is a sweater in cable and rib pattern, it says on there, as you can see there. So it's got this like little cable detail on the sides here. Now what got me started into wanting to make this, I really liked the combo of the outfit in this one with the jumper and the skirt, and I was looking at this and I saw it was EMU yarns. Now again, I didn't find any original double knitting yarn, so I had a look at EMU yarns and I saw they still do wool to this day, well, yarn to this day. And so I had a look, I've got some notes here actually. So it said they were first established in 1941 as a yarn company, and from what I can tell they kind of seemed to like have a break. Like in my years of knitting, I don't always remember seeing the EMU yarns. I could be wrong, please correct me in the comments below if I am wrong. But then I saw that they relaunched their classic range of yarns in 2021, and they've put on here in the description for what I was thinking of using, which was the EMU Classic DK Soft, which has a huge colour choice, and they've wrote in the description on their website that it's smooth and wonderful to work with, shares the same quality, easy care and superb value characteristics EMU was known for decades ago. So it got me thinking, because I really liked the big selection of colours they have. But the only thing is, I did look at it and it's like 100% acrylic when I was looking at it online. I thought, well, at the end of the day, I've been making things in acrylic lately because I've been knitting using original yarns, and there are huge advantages to knitting with acrylic. I mean, if you're allergic to wool, it's great. It's a no-brainer. It's a good yarn substitute. And also, if you, for instance, you know, you don't have to iron with it, and it's just in the washing machine, and it's quite easy to wash up. You know, it's a bit more care has to be taken when I knit with actual wool. It's just for years I've been used to knitting with wool a lot, and premium wool, and you know, so I wasn't sure, but I didn't actually have any, so I decided to order some of the EMU Classic DK yarn. I decided to order some of that, and I thought, well, I will see what it feels like, because it says it's 100% premium acrylic, and here it is here, and I must admit it feels super soft. It's really nice, actually, really nice to touch. I really do like it. And I got it in this colour. So I ordered 5 balls. Now when I looked at the quantities, I want to knit the 34 bust. Again, it's limited sizing on these old patterns. It's a 34, 36 and 38 bust, so I'm going with the 34. And I worked out with the ounces and looking at Ravelry to see what the yardage was of that. I would need just over 400 gram balls, I believe. They come in 100 gram balls. So I got 500 just to cover myself in case, you know, I need more. And what the other advantage with this acrylic yarn is super cheap. So you can, if you go online and shop for it, you can find it ranging in price at anywhere between sort of £1.99 up to a maximum of around just under £3. So I got 5 because I thought, well, that's okay. And I was just more intrigued than anything to knit a tension square and see if this original DK yarn, like they said you can use here, this is Cortel double knitting, but again that would be a man-made yarn, and this is acrylic, so it's, I think, pretty similar. I thought, well, I'll knit a tension square, and in the tension square it did say 6 stitches. Again, it doesn't do rows. It doesn't do rows on this, it just does stitches, and again to 1 inch, because it was a 60s pattern. It was before they changed to decimal, and it was then 10 centimetres or 4 inches. So it's 6 stitches to 1 inch, measured over the rib pattern when slightly stretched. So I knitted an initial tension square with the rib, and I slightly stretched, and it matched exactly. I was super happy about that. So I thought, well, I will try this. You know, it's probably not even cost me £10 in the wool. So I thought, well, I'll give it a go. So I've just started this weekend knitting it, and this is the back. And yeah, it's, when I've put it round me, it's going to fit absolutely fine. It's going to have a slight stretch to the rib, so it's not going to be like this. It's going to have a nice little bit of a stretch, which I think was the aim for that tension square. And it's knitting up to the tension. So I'm really, really impressed with that. I'm like, brilliant, it actually matches. So I'm using my cubic needles that I really love again from this, I'm obsessed with them, is this Joy of Knitting, from this Joy of Knitting kit, because I need a 4mm needle for the main bulk of the knitting, so I'm using these, and they're just such a joy to knit with, and they're knitting really well with this acrylic yarn as well, which is premium acrylic, and it's so soft, it feels really nice. Like I said, I've become a bit of a, you could say a bit of a yarn snob, to be honest, where I'm like, oh, I only use like high quality wools, and I still like to use nice quality wools and everything like that, but I must admit, since knitting with some of the original yarns, I'm liking this acrylic as well. Some acrylics can be really, just feel horrible. And I think maybe for a while I'd used acrylics that weren't very nice to knit with. I'd knitted something for a friend and I got some acrylic yarn and I wasn't that impressed with it and didn't feel great. But this feels, I'm liking this EMU acrylic wool. And it's gonna, you know, I won't need to like press it or anything. It will just be wash and go, which is, you know, again, could be a top when I'm traveling or something, I can just take with me, and it's super easy and to wear, and that's really good. And like I said as well, it comes in so many amazing colours, like loads, a huge variety of shades and different shades of that shade, of oranges, pinks and blues and purples and, you know, burgundies. It's great. Really, I'm really impressed with this. And it's now making me think, actually, I'm super tempted after I've done this project, just to, you know, see how it is, but I'm really tempted to also use this and knit it with some of my other EMU vintage knitting patterns, and just the tension squares initially, just to see if they knit the same as well. If they do, then that's going to open this whole new doors of knitting with some modern yarns that knit to the right tension and knit as per like the original patterns, because they've tried to, you know, replicate what their yarns were years ago from what they say in their descriptions. So that's going to be really interesting to see, and I might do a video on that. Please comment below if you'd like to see a video on me doing tension squares with the different patterns, different EMU knitting patterns that I have, and just to compare and see if it sort of works for a lot of them, because that will help you guys as well. If anyone out there has got EMU knitting patterns and they're thinking, oh, I haven't got the original yarn for it, then this might be a, you know, an option for you, which would be really good. So the other thing is, I think this is going to knit up quite fast as well. It's double knitting, it's DK, it's on 4mm needles, and like I said, I just started this for a couple of hours at the weekend, and the only time consuming part of it really is just making sure I've got the right rows. This is why a knit counter is important, because I just have to make sure I do the right cables on the right rows. There's a cable twist on the 3rd row and a cable twist on the 9th row that I have to do to get this effect. So I just have to make sure and be mindful that I'm doing it and I'm doing the right cable twist on that row, otherwise it'll be some unpicking to do. And that's just how the back looks. So I think it's going to knit quite fast, and it's, like I said, super smooth, super soft, really easy to see. I feel like the last couple of projects, or some of the projects I've shown on here, have been knitted in black. So I did have like 2 with the dress and the top I made, if you look through my previous videos. So it's a real joy to actually be knitting with a lighter colour, so I can see it really easy in the evening as well. And I can't express what a joy it is to knit in a lighter colour after knitting with black. It's like, I don't think I've got any more projects where I'm knitting with a really dark black yarn anymore at the moment, because it can be a strain on your eyes at night time, and the majority of my knitting I do is in the evenings, if I'm completely honest, because like I said, I have a full-time job, embroidery business that I run, so I normally just, you know, squeeze in a few hours here and there. And like I said, I think this is going to be quite a quick knit to make this. You know, it's just a front, a back and some sleeves, which for me, and then I think you just got to pick up the neckband. I think it's saying like cast on 100 stitches for my size here, and then I work in stocking stitch for a couple of inches, and I cast off loosely, and then I think I must just slip stitch that around the neck. So there isn't really a lot to it in the whole grand scheme of what I've made in the past, or designed or knitted. This is a real simple knit actually, and it's good to be doing a Mary Quant pattern again. I'm loving that, and the fact I've found a yarn substitute that's from the original brand that seems to have started again in 2021, I believe, and I don't know, I'm just super excited about it, and I look forward to showing you more on this project. So the front and back are knitted the same way up to the armhole shaping, and they initially are cast on with a number size 10 UK needle, which is a 3.25 needle. So it's knitting a knit 3 purl 2 rib, and near the beginning there are some stitches increased on the 3.25mm needles, and then you change over to the 4mm needles, which is equivalent to a size 8 old UK needle, and then you start this cable design, which is on either side of this pattern. As you can see, there's a photocopy here of it for my personal use here, and you can see it's got this cable design here, and like I said, at the armhole shaping it changes. So the pattern has a total of 12 rows. The majority of those are like a purl 2, knit 3, purl 2, until you get to this cable area on each side, which is a knit 12 on the right side row and a purl 12 on the wrong side. But there are 2 rows in the pattern where you do the cable twist on this, and that's on rows 3 and 9. So I'm just going to show you for each row on those how the cable twist works on those. So it says in the pattern to use a cable needle. Now, I've never really used cable needles, if I'm completely honest. I tend to just use a double pointed needle. The difference with this and a cable needle is a cable needle has like a ditch in the middle of the needle. It almost like bends in the middle, and that's so your stitches can kind of hold on it. But I've never had a problem just using a straightforward, normal, double pointed or double ended needle. I find that works absolutely fine. They don't tend to slide off, and it's just what I just have in my knitting stash, so it's just easy for me to use. I'm not sure, I think this is a 4mm double pointed needle, so that would be the same as what this is as well. When it comes to a particular size cable needle, I don't think it matters too much, as long as it's not super wide compared to your stitches, so you're not stretching your stitches. But if it's a bit smaller, that's fine. Like I said, whatever you've got in your stash, a double-ended needle, just to hold some stitches on. But I'm just going to show you now how that kind of works when you're doing the cabling on each side. So this is row 9 of the cable pattern. So what it basically says to do is to knit 2, and then you purl 2 and you knit 3 twice. So that's the first one, and now I'm going to purl 2 and knit 3 again. And then it says to purl 2, and now this is when you get to your cable shaping part. So on the row 9 it tells me to knit 4, and then what I need to do is cable 8 front. So by that, what I mean is you need to put 4 stitches onto your cable needle, or this double pointed needle that I have here, and because it says the front, I leave these 4 stitches here at the front of the work, and I just kind of, it's long enough for me to just kind of hold it under the palm of my left hand whilst I'm working the next stitches. And then what I need to do is I knit 4 off the needle behind where I've left these on this, cable needle, so to speak, or my double pointed needle. So I knit the 4 at the back there, and this is where you get the twist of the cable. And then what I do is then I just knit the 4 stitches off this needle that they've been resting on or holding on. And then I can just pop that to the side for a minute. So as you can see, you've now got this cable twist here. And then what it says is just to rib till the next part here. So I'm just going to quickly do that first. So I've worked all the ribbon along here, and I'm just going to purl these last 2. So again, I get to the group of 12 stitches here. So what it says on this part of the design is to cable 8 back. So what I do is I put 4 stitches onto my spare needle, and then I just pop them at the back because it says cable 8 back. I hold them there in my hand whilst I then knit 4 off the needle here. So I've knitted 4 off the needle, and then on the spare needle at the back where they're being held, the stitches, I then just knit the 4 off that double pointed needle there, or your cable needle you can use. So again, I'm just going to put the needle to one side, and then I've got 4 here. It then just says to knit 4, and then what I need to do is just finish off the ribbing that side, and then you'll just continue to rib until you get to row 12, and then you start the pattern all over again. I'm just going to quickly finish the end of this to show you. Just along here now. So again, like on row 3, you'll see they're twisted slightly differently to sort of mirror one another each side, and that's how it sort of goes all the way up here, sort of the opposites on there. So I'm now at the point where I'm on row 3 of the pattern, and what we need to do on this one is, as I said earlier, on rows 3 and 9, it's the cable shaping that I have to do on each end here. So what it says on the first part is to knit 2, and then purl 2, knit 3 twice, so that's the first, and then I'm purling 2 and knitting 3 again. And then it says to purl 2, and then I need to get the cable needle, or as I said earlier, this double pointed needle I'm using, and it says to cable 8 back. So what I do is I slip 4 stitches onto my holding needle, and I pop them at the back here, and I just hold that spare needle in my left hand as I'm knitting. And then what I need to do is knit 8 from my actual left hand needle. So sorry, I knit 4 from my left hand needle. So I knit 4 from my left hand needle. 2, it's the third one, 4. And then what I need to do is knit the 4 that are on this holding needle here. So I'm just going to do that now. And then I just put that needle to one side, and then it says to knit 4 more on here. And then I just need to work in the rib pattern until I get to the next set of the cable stitch area here. So I'm now at the point where I'm at the second part, so I'm just going to finish off the rib here with the purl 2, and then it says on this part that I need to knit 4 of this cable pattern, so I knit 4, and then I need to cable 8 front. So again, what I do is get this the cable needle, double pointed needle, and I just slip 4 stitches here onto this. I slip 4 stitches here, so I slip 4 stitches here onto this holding needle, and I place them at the front here, because it says to cable 8 front. So when it says cable 8 front or back, it's in multiples of 4. So you have 4 stitches on the holding needle and 4 stitches that you work from on your actual needle, which make a total of 8. So I'm going to hold those at the front there, and now I'm just going to knit 4 off the needle here. And now I'm going to knit the 4 off the holding needle here. And I'm just going to pop that holding needle out the way, and then it says just to continue in the rib pattern to the end, which I'm doing here. And what you'll see then is the twist of the cable mirrors each other on each side, with the way you cable 8 on the back at the beginning and then cable 8 at the front on this side, and then you get this nice cable definition on the sides here. So what the pattern says is just to continue up to the armhole shaping. There's no more sort of shaping in this area, you just continue straight. It says 13.5 inches, but I'm actually doing mine to about 15.5 inches just because I wanted it slightly longer in the body, and I've got enough of this EMU DK yarn to be able to do that. So I'm going to do mine slightly longer, and then that's at the point we get to the armhole shaping, where you shape that and then do your decreasing and everything like that on that part. So I've now knitted the back and the front and both the sleeves and also the collar. Now on these instructions it says to, on this Mary Quant instructions, it says to block after you've sewn it all together. So the first thing it says to do is to sew the shoulder seams together. I've already weaved in all the loose ends. If you'd like to see how I weave in loose ends on my garments, I do have some previous vintage knitting videos where I show that process, but to save time on this one I've already pre-done that here. So first of all I'm going to do is just pin the right sides together. I'm just going to pin the shoulder seams together for the front and back, and I'm going to join these using a mattress stitch. So I'm using a wool needle here, which has a larger eye on the end, and it's slightly blunted here as well, so it doesn't split the yarn as it's sewn through. And rather than knot the end, what I do is I just weave it in a few stitches up to the shoulder seam. So I'm just going to weave that in around here, just to the top, and then I just gently pull the yarn through. And I'm just going to do a couple of knots at the beginning there. So that's nice and secure. And then I'm literally going to do a mattress stitch here. I'm just going to join the beginning on the edge of these shoulders. Just going to remove the first pin. I'm just going to match those stitches. They sort of pretty much reverse each side, so I'm just going to go through each sort of knitted stitches here, a couple of strands at a time. So I'm just weaving under the stitches to join that. And I'm going to continue that until I get to the end, and then I'm just going to fasten off with a knot and weave in the yarn there and repeat for this shoulder too. So the pattern next says to join the side seams, so I've pinned them on both sides of the front and back, and now the same what I did on the shoulders here, I'm going to be doing a mattress stitch just to join those seams now. So I've now joined the side seams using a mattress stitch, and as you can see, you can't really tell where the side seam even is. It's very subtle. So the pattern says next for me to join the sleeve seams. So I've just pinned all those, and again I'm just going to use a mattress stitch just to join those. So I've sewed the sleeve seams. Again, really difficult to tell sort of where the join is with the mattress stitch on there, and I've also set in the sleeves as the instructions told me to do, which again you might not be able to see the exact join on those. And now I've just joined the collar, which I seamed on the side, and again I've just mattress stitched that right sides together. The instructions are saying to fold it halfway, or fold in half, fold the collar in half, and then slip stitch this edge down. So the collar will look like that when finished. So the last part of the instructions just say to fold the collar in half. So that's the right side, this is the wrong side. And I've just done that by pinning it down. And then it just says to slip stitch the under part here into place using the matching yarn. So I'm just going to do that now. So I've now slip stitched the inside of the collar, and the final instructions of the pattern say to press this top with a cool iron and a cloth over the top as you're ironing or pressing. Now I've checked the ball band of the Modern yarn, and it does actually state, if you can see there, do not iron. So since I'm using this Modern yarn of the EMU Classic DK equivalent from the original pattern, which was EMU double knitting, I've decided to follow the instructions on this ball band since I'm using this yarn, and I'm not going to press this top in case, being acrylic, it could melt and I really don't want that to happen. So it's now ready for me to try on. So following on from my recent Mary Quant knits that I've been doing with this particular pattern, before a certain time of her pattern releases, they seem to have these kind of markings in the background instead of her very famous daisy that she used to have in a few of the patterns afterwards, which I feel were slightly later 60s knits. So I recently came across a knitting pattern brochure where I've actually managed to pinpoint a time of when these particular Mary Quant patterns were released, when they had these kind of geometric patterns in the background. And it's a Hayfield knitting pattern catalogue, and it says on here, it's got an example of one of the knitted cardigans from her patterns, and it actually says January 1966. So technically these patterns would have been designed in around 1965, ready to be on the market for sale in January 66. So I just wanted to show you what that was like in there. So there's one of the patterns there, the Mary Quant ones. And there's a couple more that I do have in my collection as well. So these are just other Hayfield patterns. And there is also this price list, which is really lovely to see, of the different yarns they had back then. You can see like 2 shillings per ounce of these. And here is another Mary Quant one here. And also another one I have in my collection, which is this one, all from around the same time. And then it's just other standard Hayfield patterns. And there's some handwriting on there. which perhaps when people were working out what they wanted, or the yarn shop at the time. I'm not sure which yarn shop owned this particular pattern book. And then we go into the children's ranges and babies. So it was really interesting to see that was from 1966. And now we can have a year for these Mary Quant patterns, the earlier ones with these kind of shapes in the background of them. We roughly know now when they were from. And here is the final reveal of this lovely Mary Quant jumper. So overall, I'm really pleased with how this top has turned out. I feel like it's knitted true to the pattern. So I was really happy that EMU yarns still exist, and I was able to find a similar double knitting yarn they still stock that knitted to the exact tension. That was really, really good. I really like the cable detailing on here as well. I think that's a really nice effect, and I had to be really mindful of that when I was actually knitting this top and making sure I got the cables right. And there was the odd time I did have to unpick it on one of the sides where I was watching TV, and I got a bit distracted with what I was watching on TV, so I did slightly do some of the cabling wrong, but it was quite a quick fix to do because it's double knitting yarn, it's a bit thicker, the yarn, it's not too fine. And also in the end, all I actually required was 4 of these balls to make it. I've still got a full one here, so I didn't need the full 5, which was really good. Now I'm not always, I mean, obviously this is acrylic yarn, and I think if you're allergic to wool, it's a really good alternative to potentially use. I personally do prefer wool in my knitting when I knit garments, but it was an interesting experiment to try, and I definitely will wear it. It's, as you can see, it's quite smooth, and it did have a tendency to, I think it's the way it's plied, it was almost a bit slippery. It kind of, the ball would unravel, and I had to be mindful of that because sometimes it would not. So you've just got to make sure, because it just wants to fall out of there a bit, because it's quite, like I said, almost like a very, yeah, so what I found is it's quite a drapey yarn, and it maybe is the acrylic or the way it's plied that's done that. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to make. They do some great colours, which I really love. This orange, very vibrant, and so it was just very satisfying to knit another Mary Quant knitting pattern. I'm really pleased that I made this one, and this is like super cheap. It wasn't expensive. So this yarn was £1.99 a ball. So it's a really good, cost-effective, if you're on a budget, yarn to make a perfectly nice knitted top. So I hope you enjoyed the video. So if you'd like to see any more of my videos where I will be uploading some wool makes from the knitting patterns I've made from the 1960s and 70s, as well as documenting some of my own designs that I also make, please feel free to subscribe to my channel by clicking on the link below. And once again, thank you for watching.